Hi, XFed here. I wanted to do a quick video regarding a singular topic that is going to be pretty important with regard to how I process things. It's a skill that was developed from very early age and affects everything that I have done up to the present. And what I describe it as is adversarial thinking. Um, and what do I mean by adversarial thinking? Well, that is being able to empathize with your adversaries. If you have somebody that you're up against, let's say hypothetically you have somebody who wishes to do you harm, you empathize with them, you think like them, you process things like them, and you anticipate their likely next moves. You will then develop strategies to minimize impacts to yourself and any actions that you might take, trying to create plans and contingencies in the event that your adversary or adversaries take certain actions in response to yours. So again, in this blog, this video blog, it's to help you understand me. So why do I think this way? Why do I approach things this way? And to explain that, you would have to watch some of the other videos, but and I'm going to avoid obviously a lot of topics, so I don't have to put as many disclaimers on this video. It stems directly from abuse. There's no getting around that. I was living in a house where I was more or less being trained to pretend that I didn't exist. I was supposed to just stay in my room when I wasn't eating or doing a task for my primary abusers. And my existence was inconvenient. And I don't expect anybody, unless you've dealt with that, to understand that perspective. But that's the fastest way to say what I need to say with regard to that. And I can give some limited examples. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because this went on for years. Outside of the the bad things I was doing, because yeah, I definitely was a shitty kid and a shitty teenager. Outside of those things, though, one of the examples that I came up with to share was being told how disgusting I was in terms of the sound of my chewing by one of my primary abusers, my worst primary abuser. They expressed their disgust with being able to hear me chew, and I remember looking at them, not knowing how to respond to this. This was a new form of attack, a new form of abuse. It was emotional and mental. Another example that I came up with was eating food that I wasn't supposed to. If you watch the other videos, you'll have a rough idea of what happened, but there would be times where I would be woken up between the hours of 12 and 4 in the morning, and that was one of the topics that would come up pretty regularly if I touched something that I wasn't supposed to, or ate something that I wasn't supposed to, put stuff out of place. And to that point, another example, getting yelled at for putting a dish away in the wrong spot. That happened. And it's really hard to give a list of all of the examples, other than just basically outlining a circumstance where I was not supposed to leave my room unless there was a purpose. And I mean, I was probably told something along those lines at some point, but it was not temporary. It became the norm. It became an everyday thing. So I spent a lot of time in my room alone, by myself, just isolated emotionally, mentally, physically, and I had no friends. I wasn't allowed to go out as much, and if I did, sometimes there would be consequences for it. So like I said before, developing the ability to think like my adversary became a necessary skill as a matter of survival. I had to be able to anticipate my primary abuser's actions in relation to my own, in order to try to avoid getting into trouble or dealing with the hostility. So in the spirit of keeping this video short, I'll talk about professional usage. Beginning in high school, I became aware of and started learning about John Nash and game theory. If you don't know the body of work there, it's essentially John Nash's contributions were a mathematical explanation of how parties interacted and made choices from the perspective of adversarial and cooperative thinking. And his work greatly contributed to many other areas of science and understanding. And just, I'm going to touch on it briefly. I'm not going to explain, but in my own experience, it became applicable in intelligence work when I was in the military, and then after I left the military, I rediscovered some of it in learning about economics and law and a number of other areas. I basically came directly back into contact with some of John Nash's work, and I excelled at it where others did not necessarily. And in the present, I'm still developing using these skills. Obviously they had a very negative origin in terms of why I developed these skills, but I'm trying to develop them into strengths. And one of the areas that I found that I am absolutely infatuated and in love with is cybersecurity, specifically a desire to do either penetration testing or sometimes called adversary emulation, befitting enough, and another area which is more specifically offensive cybersecurity. And while I may not end up doing offensive, I can still do pen testing at some point. And I'm going to include a link in the description or the comments. I've had to kind of do comment instead because YouTube is blocking the descriptions unless I upload I think a proof video and an ID, which again, for data purposes, I hate YouTube and Google. so I'm not going to do that, but I'll include, as long as they're not editing it out. If somebody sees this and you don't see the descriptions and I'm able to respond, um, let me know. But I'm going to put them in, at least in the comments. I'll include a link though to, um, God, what is his name? I'll have to look it up. It'll be in the link below, but it'll talk about penetration testing. There's a really funny video from a guy. There's a presentation he gave at DefCon, which is, you can do plenty of research on it. Just be careful. If you don't know what you're doing, don't go too far. Just stick to YouTube and look up DefCon. Don't click on other links as much. But he made a very funny video, very lighthearted presentation on physical penetration testing, and really opened my eyes to the world of penetration testing and made me much more interested in it. So so that's going to be it for today's video. Like I said, trying to keep it short. And if you guys have any questions or any feedback, please try to include it in the comments, and I will respond to them as time allows. Anyway, appreciate your time. Xfit out.